When we read God's word, we see that it does call the mountains of Ararat, and
Yeah.
the text shows them embarking out from the ark into the plains of Shinar, which is just to the east of there.
Okay, the mountains of Ararat. The passage in question is Genesis 8:4. And in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark rested upon the holy hill. This is how the passage should actually read in your English Bible. That's how I see it, and I'll show you how. But I must tell you, there's two ways of understanding this expression here. There's two Hebrew terms that need to be understood correctly. But there's two ways of looking at this, and I'll tell you about both of them. And let's start with the way that is probably the most typical way of seeing it out there. So, holy hill. First of all, this expression here is actually not Hebrew, but Sanskrit. And on page 5 here, in the notes to the right of the passage, you find this. See note B here? Holy. This term derives from a Sanskrit root. It's a loan word, which, if utilized by the redacting priests, would indicate the kingdom of Urartu. Okay, let's stop right there. What do I mean by redacting priests? What I mean is the priests who were responsible for constructing the Pentateuch from Mosaic material, and this occurred in the 6th century BC in preparation or due to the Babylonian captivity. It was at that time that priests formed our Pentateuch from Mosaic material. And when they did this, there were times when they updated certain readings. For example, in Genesis 14, they updated a foreign name for Laish to read Dan, if you look into it. Well, the same thing could have been happening here. There may have been some old designation that people didn't understand, and the priests may have updated the reading in the 6th century to read Urartu. If so, it would indeed refer to a mountain range in this area, Urartu. Why? Because as early as King Shalmaneser I, this name was known to designate at least this region, and later it became the name of a kingdom in this region. So if redacting priests were updating the text, then it does mean a mountain range in Urartu. That is option number 1 for looking at this, that the ark rested upon the mountains of Urartu. And so that is option number 1 for translating this. The ark rested upon the mountains of Urartu. And that is how Bray and Hobbins have it in their New Old Translation, page 31. And the ark rested in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, upon the mountains of Urartu. They followed this meaning. But there's another way of looking at it. It's the way I look at it. And that is to consider that this term was an original Mosaic usage, which was retained in the text all the way through to our day now. But that's just the thing. If Moses wrote this in the 16th century BC, then it doesn't refer to a kingdom. It doesn't refer to a region in Armenia. And that's why note B here goes on to say, however, if originally by Moses, this term would indicate merely holy ground. See, Ellicott Gesenius is in the left-hand column in the notes on this page 5 in the book. But here is Fawcett, Ararat, Sanskrit, holy ground. Here's Ellicott. Ararat may possibly signify, from the Sanskrit, holy land. And Gesenius agrees. So again, if this term is originally from Moses, which I think it is, then it means holy. Now, as for the second word, hill, why do I say hill instead of hills? It is because this is known as an intensive plural in the Hebrew. And again, the note is just to the right of the text here. Intensive plural. Compare Psalm 133:3. In that passage, it says, mountains of Zion. But notice what Ellicott says about that passage. He says Mount Zion itself is intended. And he gives other examples of this plural. And I would suggest this same plural is going on here. It doesn't mean hills, it means the hill, the holy hill, God's holy hill, right here, which was the sacred mountain of Eden.